That's a bit of a mess. Let me stop the recording and start again. Okay.
Just tell me when we are live.
I believe we are live now.
Okay. Hello and welcome to Moreness-Culture. Good morning, Syl. Good morning, Grain. Good morning to everyone who is watching us live and will join us live and will watch us recorded on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, hopefully, and of course in the group Sassy. What we are doing here today, we are going to start the reading of Book 2 by Carlos Castaneda about Don Juan and his sharings. Don Juan is a person who was sharing moreness, not, of course, using these words. And words are not just words, these are concepts. So he might not be clear about the concept of moreness. But in actuality, in the real essence, he was sharing moreness. And this is what we really appreciate, and of course, we respect a lot. I always love and appreciate people who are putting effort and who have been putting effort and energies into exploring new things. These are the people who really deserve appreciation and acknowledgement. Because I'm the lazy one here, just sitting and taking advantage of all the sharings from them, but they were the one who really put effort into that. It could be about like the yogis, in other words, from Hinduism, and monks, and Sufis, Qalandars, and like Don Juan, and some other people, saints. These were the people who were trying. I might not be agree with the totality of all those things, but I always appreciate the intent of goodness. And this is the core of Way-Of-Impeccability and Moreness-Culture, that we do deliberately connect with the intent. And this is where the magic happens, because when we connect with the intent to goodness, then no matter what, the content is valuable or not for me, it is relevant for me or not, it doesn't matter. I still get value. This is the magic of Way-Of-Impeccability and Moreness-Culture for me. Yeah. So while Syl is sharing all these things.
That's a very big deal.
Yes, it's a huge deal, huge. Life transforming right there. And not in terms of that I get value out of it, but also it improves my relationship in general with everyone. If we just expand this and go in a more broader scale, it can be one formula to have worldwide peace. Just one thing. If we try to connect with the intent to goodness and see the value, look keenly for the value, it eliminates a lot of misunderstandings. It eliminates a lot of unnecessary hurdles, waste of time and energy. Just right there. Okay, I might not follow you, I might not agree with you, but still I will not create problems for you, and you will not create problems for me. That's it. And we can still celebrate the difference.
Oh, I'm trying to find the lives. Here it is. Very confusing today.
No problem. No problem. So we are
I'm
live?
just sharing it. Yeah. We're live. We're live.
Okay.
Well, keep going. Bye.
Okay. Anyway, so I am struggling a bit with some problem. Like it's like a cold and fever, but not exactly. I don't know what it is. It is coming back now frequently. It's all started when I had that COVID thing.
Beena,
Yes.
I'll save your voice. What we're doing in the larger context here on these lives, for a long time now we've been doing capital R readings, and a capital R reading means We read the layers, we read the depth, we read the
Yes.
moreness, we read the greater context, we read the connectivity, we read via implication, via insight, via extrapolation, yes, via what is connected to the greater culture that we are sharing, which is Moreness culture. Right? This is the intent of our lives, is to share Moreness culture. And we do so via the language of conceptionality. Right? That's the language of Moreness-Culture. And you'll hear lots of conceptions that we throw about. And this is very important. Sharing, for instance, Moreness, right? These are all capital S sharing, capital T trust, Moreness conceptions. And these conceptions have a lot of power to them. And we are reading via these conceptions. We're going to apply them because these conceptions are transformative conceptions, right? To extract Moreness, right? Right there. This is a conception. Extracting Moreness, that's the conceptions, hyphenated, put in our dictionary of power. Right? So this is a big deal. This is a very big deal what we're doing. So we're reading all sorts of other things, including much of what I've written. But right now we are reading the books of Carlos Castaneda with the intent of reading Don Juan. And when I say it's capital R reading Don Juan to get to know Don Juan. This Don Juan is a singular character. In all of literature, there's only one character that's similar to Don Juan, and that's Biela. Right? Now, Biela very different, but also at least has the same sophistication and depth. Yeah, Biela doesn't have Don Juan's magical powers, but that's a different story. So, anyway, the point that I'm making here is that we are going to now, we started reading the books. In book one of all the Carlos Castaneda's books, the first book is called The Teachings of Don Juan. There's actually very little teachings. And the second book, which is called The Separate Reality, that can be called The Teachings of Don Juan, and the third book also. Because now we're actually going to get to the teaching. The first book was all about the power plants, drugs, in other words, right? And Carlos taking peyote and mushrooms and devil's weed and having all these experiences. And Carlos misunderstands this. He thinks this is what it's all about. Well, to be fair, this was during the 60s when this stuff was the big topic, right? And so he gets it all wrong. And the reason Don Juan is using the power plants on him is to collapse his worldview, at least initially to start the crack in his worldview, which does happen, right? And this is important. He uses other techniques also to crack Carlos's worldview. He's making sure that Carlos breaks the certainty that he knows how the world works. Now, again, using Moreness-Culture language, Way-Of-Impeccability language. Right? Way-Of-Impeccability is a program that's a major part of Moreness-Culture. It's the foundation of it. And this is important for Carlos to break this certainty of his worldview. Oh, I must send the invitation to Sher. This is important because it's a new day, starting this book, and I'm going to send to Catherine, I'm going to send to Joseph, I'm going to send to Tasava, I'm going to send to Lisa, I'm going to send to Cheryl. I'm sending invites. If anybody wants an invite, let me know. Those are just the ones that came up. So, yeah, I'll send to Michaela too. And in this book now, we are going to actually start to get the real teachings, which are character teachings. Yes, Don Juan is going to be teaching Carlos character. Now, we're basically going back to the start of his apprenticeship. And we'll have the introduction is going to be that same again. Yeah. The same introduction where he meets Don Juan in the bus station in Nogales, where I've been to, by the way, that bus station in Nogales. Now, I didn't see Don Juan there, unfortunately, but it's all right. The quest was a good quest at the time. Still is. Still is. I had to make my own Don Juan and to be my own Don Juan, never mind make one. But that's powerful. That's powerful stuff. All right. So a separate reality is what this book is called. And because Carlos starts to understand that there is a separate reality from the reality that we typically call this reality, right? And this is important. And now It's not only important to understand that there are other realities, but in Way of Impeccability and Moreness-Culture, we keep saying the world does not work the way you think it does. That includes other realities, but this reality does not work the way you think it does. Right? So we need to be clear here, right? We say this very regularly. The world does not work the way we think it does. As somebody listening to this and with the alternate reality, book 2 being called a separate reality, uh, you might think, oh, that's what they mean, that there are other realities. That's part of it. But when we're saying the world does not work the way we think it does, our world, our day-to-day, every world. In other words, what we expect, what we assume, what we imagine, what we believe, those things are not as solid and as stuck as what we think they are. Right? We believe they stuck and solid. I'm looking at the phone because I'm trying to go live on TikTok, and I hope it's working. Because there's like a requirement to go live on TikTok for 30 minutes before we can connect it to Restream. Anyway, yeah. So the way the world works in our regular day-to-day reality is very different to how we assume. And it's very important to be aware of this. Very, very, very important. Right? It's critical. It's absolutely essential because we get stuck on so much, just assuming that, well, life is a drag. Life is difficult. Life is tiresome. Or you've got to work, and work is unpleasant, and blah, blah, blah. Right? And, somebody said about enemies. It came up in the first book. Don Juan talks about enemies. And Beena and I are like, seriously? Who's got enemies? I asked Beena, do you have enemies? And Beena was like, really? You asking me this? I mean, what a idiotic question. Like, come on, seriously? No.
Yes.
See, so our reality is very different to many other. They just take it for granted that you have enemies, and it's part of their language. And why? You don't have to have enemies. No, there's no need for it. It's not something that's natural and automatic. Not in the least. Not in the least whatsoever. It doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be. And many other things. Many other things. So brilliant. All right. So let's get going. Let's get reading here because I want to get started on this. I'm not seeing anybody join us, but when they come, they'll come. Let's hope they come. Joseph is here. And Joseph says, I'm going to suggest an interesting take, at least to me. Oh, I like that. I like that. To me. I love that to me, Joseph. Yes. I'm not saying to do it today or any specific day, but it would be very instructive to address certain events from the mourner's perspective. For example, Iran is apparently bombing Israel today. Such a world problem, Israel, the Palestinians, et al. I'd love to hear say the Palestinian-Israeli problem from a mourner's perspective. Yes, somebody asked me on this, or I saw a question somewhere, and they said, well, whose side are you on? And I said, sides. Sides. You want me to choose a side? Well, okay, so I must choose idiot side, foolish side, nonsense side, silliness side. And they say, well, which one? I said, they all there. It's war. There's no sensible side in war. Right? None. The mourner's perspective is to not choose sides, to not even see sides. That's that agree, disagree, right, wrong mindset, either or, mentality of opposites. Moreness perspective says go beyond that. Look to understand. What we've got here is an immersion into nonsense that has snowballed, and people are getting carried away with it, right? And on both sides, you're getting people very, very foolish that are doing very, very foolish things. And this is it. Foolishness begets foolishness. And I have a very old expression that comes from way back when in my childhood that I came up with, right? And if people don't think you can come up with stuff that's profound in your childhood, think again. We teach children to be stupid. In the same way as these cultures are teaching their children to grow up, and you grow up, you've got an enemy and you've got to fight and got to, should. And this is what's causing that problem, right? This perpetuation of shoulds and bubble culture and not looking to understand the bigger issue. Yes? and lack of impeccability. People are doing things that they know they themselves don't think it's a good thing to do, but they do it anyway because they feel they need to, they have to, they should, etc. Right? Very terrible. Very, very, very terrible, this should mindset. So the saying that I came up with is excess breeds excess. That will give you an insight into that whole circumstance. And also beliefs. Yeah? Why am I so adamant, Beena? Why is Beena so adamant about not having beliefs? Yes, or at least if you have beliefs, know that they are beliefs. Know that they are your choices. Yeah, you can have beliefs, of course. We're not against anything. Moreness-Culture, do whatever you wish. However, be aware. Moreness-Culture is all about awareness, discernment, and understanding leading to application. So when you understand the problem with beliefs is that most people do not believe, actually. They say, oh, I believe this, I believe that. But scratch it a little bit and you'll see that belief is not actually belief. And what do I mean? I mean they treat the belief as a fact. A belief is by definition not a fact. A belief is by definition not a fact. Yes? But yet people act as if their beliefs are facts, because this is what religion has pushed into us. Yes? It is a fact that your deity exists. But if you look at it globally, you see one part of the world is saying, yes, but it's a fact that this deity exists. And another part of the world says it's a fact that this deity exists. And there's conflict and opposition. Why this insistence? It's just when you understand it via the superiority paradigm, and part of Moreness-Culture is to understand the prevailing culture that we're in, the prevailing paradigm that we're in, which is superiority paradigm. And superiority paradigm, again, this mentality of opposites. It's all about being important, being better, being superior, etc. And that says, if I'm right, then you're wrong. And if you're wrong, if you're right, well, and I've got a different opinion, then by implication, I'm wrong. And I don't like being wrong. I can't be wrong, because if I'm wrong, that makes me inferior. So I've got to defeat your rightness and make you wrong, and then I'll be right. It's very primitive thinking. This is the culture that we still have to a large extent in our world. It's based on this ridiculous primitiveness. Yes. And your hierarchy was because of scarcity of resources, and it really boiled down to whether you're going to eat or not. If you're at the bottom of the pecking order, you might not eat. So your status was also your physical survival. Now, that doesn't exist anymore, but still we've got that conditioning in us, right? So we have all of this, the superiority paradigm nonsense. And look, just look, for instance, the macho culture. Just look at it in these conflicts, how those guys are going, oh, we're going to smash them, we're going to kill them, we're going to wipe them from the face of the earth, blah, 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 blah. In other words, look how tough I am, look how tough I am, look how tough I am. Whenever somebody's crowing and proclaiming to the world how tough they are, scratch a little bit and you'll find insecurity. Yes. That's it. They're insecure, got fear, they're living in fear. Right? It's a fascinating thing. It's a fascinating thing. Yeah? They don't have any peace of being. So they have to prove that they're tough to make themselves feel at peace, because they know they're vulnerable. We can't get away from vulnerability. We are vulnerable. There's nothing you can do about it. Might as well make peace with it. Yeah, you can walk outside. You might not even have to go outside. A meteor could fall through your roof and crush you, no matter where you are. Okay, I'm going to live underground. Well, you could have a cave in and die there. You know, I mean, this myth, this idea that somehow you can escape death. No, you got to deal with death. Yeah. If you see death as something horrible and terrible and fearful, well, change your view. Learn to live in such a way that when time comes to death, you're quite happy and you say, all right, death, let's go. Let's go on our new adventure. Right? This is what Way-Of-Impeccability is all about. This is what Moreness-Culture is all about. Yes. Living in such a way that you get the most out of your life now, and whatever potential life that you might go into, you're ready for that. You're prepared for that. Yeah? You're learning character qualities, way of impeccability. Yes, to be impeccable, best use of energy, to be thoughtful, to be deliberate, to be conscientious, to be thorough, to be scrupulous, yes, to have integrity, to have patience, to have discipline, to have forbearance, to have thoughtfulness, to have insight, to have discernment, layeredness, to be able to see the more, to have an overview perspective, to see big picture, to be able to conceptualize. All of these skills of being. Tell me which possible reality you can imagine where those skills that I've just mentioned, among many more, right? Where those skills of being are not going to be worthwhile, valuable. They're all going to be fantastically valuable and necessary and important, no matter what reality you're in. Yes? Awareness is going to serve you in good stead, whatever reality you're in. It's what you need. Yeah. But you need more than awareness, because you need discernment. You need the ability to take that into understanding, and then you need the ability to be able to apply it. See, fundamental skills, thinking things through to the end, critical skill, no matter what reality you're in. Perspective shifting to multiple perspectives, absolutely critical, no matter what reality you're in. So we're preparing for this. So to come back to the Middle East conflict, this is just bubble awareness. People getting caught in bubble awareness, and they're getting caught in should. Yes, we should fight, we should argue. And they don't understand the power of collaboration. Don't understand this. So lack of awareness. The whole issue, lack of awareness, folly, foolishness, silliness on both sides, both sides, both sides. Never mind both sides, there's more than two sides involved. Yes. There's the people who are supporting them, and then there's people who switch sides, and, support both, and so on. All involved in folly. All involved in folly. Yes. So when we look at this from that Moreness perspective, we understand and we are sad. Why? Because it's a lack of awareness issue. Bottom line, lack of awareness issue. And a perpetuation issue of culture. Yes. Should. Yes. And each side is so stuck in their should that they can't get out of it. Because they have this absolute bogus, complete nonsense, idiocy, and that is all about winning. You can only succeed if you win. Anything else is out of the question, terrible, horrible, and all that. This whole winning culture, which is superiority culture, it's win at all costs. And look at the cost of the winning. It's horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous. They'll wipe themselves out trying to win. Foolishness, absolute foolishness. Both sides, both sides, both sides. And those that support them, also foolish. You've got to say, no, we're not going to support you in this foolishness. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Find some other way. Winning violence, war, this is not the way to solve the problem. Absolutely not. No, get out of that. But, of course, we have to understand the bigger picture, moreness. Yes. And there's pressure on governments to support. Why? Who puts that pressure? Arms industry. They're going to sell equipment. Somebody's making money out of this. Look at the money, right? Always the detectives say, follow the money, follow the money, follow the money, and you'll see the pressures that are quite happy to exploit the foolishness and the egos and the pettiness and the childishness of those people on the ground there, yeah, who believe in enemies and hate and all this stuff, right? And we got to destroy them and winning and all this stuff. People exploiting you. People are exploiting you, people. Yes, you're being exploited. You're being exploited. Pay attention. And as long as they're willing to go with it, no, they're going to get exploited, right? They're willing victims. They don't realize they're willing victims, but they are. So not everybody in the area, yes. Like the Israeli government, which is a very big instigator on this. They're a very unpopular government. They have a lot of opposition against them. And, whenever their next elections come up, I'll be very surprised if they stay in power. But, but the same thing, with the other side, not necessarily the Palestinians, but Hamas, which, it's a complicated situation there. You've got the military unit, which is not necessarily representative as well. Same thing in Israel with the government. They control the military. They're not necessarily representative. So there's complexity. You've got abuses of power, etc. And when we understand the abuses of power and the manipulation and the distortions, then you start to see the bigger picture, right? The bigger picture, though, is do something different, change your paradigm, You're looking to win a war. Shift the paradigm from saying, what about collaborating? That whole area, if suddenly they start collaborating and doing joint projects and having an merged economy, etc., that collaboration is going to make them all prosperous. They can't think this way. Yeah, they need to. So Moreness-Culture, there's a lot to it when you come to resolving such issues. Yes, you've got to learn to think in a more evolved way. They're stuck in primitive thinking. Yes, stuck in primitive thinking. Sad. They're stuck in the superiority paradigm. Bottom line. Does that make sense, Joseph? Does that help? You know, at some point with this type of thing, Joseph, uh, you know, you can talk a lot and share, and if people don't want to hear, then they have to learn the hard way, which is through suffering. You know, that's kind of how the universe works. Yeah. Does that make sense? It's a reality, but that's how it works. You know, the universe will tell you nicely, tell you nicely, tell you nicely, and then it says, well, you know, here's your smack, and eventually it will really kind of give you a hard time and make you suffer until you learn. That's how the world works. Yeah. Choose to learn or be forced to learn. That's bottom line. But either way, you're going to learn. If you're taking a long time to learn, if you're stubborn in not learning, you're going to suffer. Very simple. Very simple. All right, all right. Let's get going with our book 2. A little slow in starting here, but all right. So be it. We'll read the introduction at least. Beena, do you have a perspective on the Middle Eastern conflict issue?
Yes, because both sides, whatever is happening, it's a deliberate ignorance there. They both are deliberately ignoring. Like, even if suppose that someone is saying that, okay, this land belongs to them, that they were there, and the other party is saying that, okay, their claim. No matter what, the reality is right now, they both are there. And they have to resolve this problem by accepting this reality right now. I'm not forcing Palestinians to accept that the Israelis are there, but I just want both of them to understand the reality. You cannot just get rid of the whole ethnicity of Palestinian or Israelis. No. So it's a deliberate ignorance from both sides. So this is, we cannot have like, okay, at least I don't feel that, like you said, that any side to be like, okay, oh, I'm with them. And I do feel what is happening there. It's a crime against humanity, like it was at the time of genocide. Exactly like that. That was the crime. This is the crime. But it is happening because of deliberate ignorance from both sides.
Right, right, exactly. Also,
We deliberately
let's
want
not
to be unaware.
This we have to make very clear. Some people want to make out that the Middle East thing is a religious conflict. No, it's not. It's a political conflict. And it just happens to be that some parties on the various sides of the political conflict subscribe to a particular religion. But just
If it is
because the
a
Palestinians are mostly Muslim, that doesn't mean it's Muslims against Jews. Beena, do you have Muslim versus Jewish antagonism and violence and fighting and stuff in Pakistan? I know in
no,
South Africa, I grew up well, at least in Cape Town, one of the places I grew up in, there was a very substantial Muslim community. The Jewish communities, every little town had a Jewish storekeeper. There was a small Jewish community. Right in the middle town I grew up in, you know, there
yes,
was a mosque. There was a substantial Jew. They lived quite happily and never.
no,
I
yes,
never
they live.
ever even heard a thought of Muslim versus Jewish in South Africa, and same in Pakistan. Correct? Not an issue.
Exact. No, it is not a problem at all. Okay, we don't have
Exactly.
a big majority of course, big number of Jewish people here anymore. But some
Correct.
people who are living in Jerusalem now, and they are doing YouTube videos and sharing that oh, I miss Karachi because they were living in Karachi. and they shared that their experiences. It was wonderful. But of course, the Israeli government is like, okay, offered them that to okay to come here and settle here, which was good. Okay, if I'm saying this quote unquote all caps, if it is a religious issue, it's a religious issue for three most popular religions in the world. It's not only about two, not only Jewish and Muslims, it's about Christians also. This
Popular
place
Western
is being,
religion, not religions
yeah,
in total.
yeah, it is like, I'm just saying that, okay, it's a popular one. I'm not saying that, okay, these are the biggest one, but just a popular one. So
All right.
these all, according to all three religions, it's a holy land. And what we are doing there,
Yeah.
all three of us,
Exactly.
what we are doing
How
there,
holy is it is in all this
nonsense,
nonsense? It's not a religious issue.
nonsense.
It's not a religious.
Yes.
Yeah. It's an ego issue. Us against you. You've gotten into a fight. Take a better example, or not a better example, but an alternative example of exactly the same problem, but it gives a nicer perspective. Catholics versus Protestants. At one time, this was a big conflict in Europe, but that's ages ago. Yeah. I mean, how long has Catholics and Protestants not been able to get together and living? For centuries now, they've been living quite happily, except in Northern Ireland. It's not a religious conflict. It's got all sorts of other stuff. It just happens to be that this is how they sort of sorted and fell into the sides there. Yes, there may originally have been some variation, but really, you can't say it's Protestant versus Catholic, really, because the rest of the world hasn't got this issue. Why only you guys in Northern Ireland? Something else going on, right? Same thing in the Middle East. Yes. It's territorial issues, land issues, and I mean, you have to look at the whole history of how Israel came about. Modern Israel. In terms of how they came to get the land, and the people that were living there, and I mean, the Jews weren't there. There weren't very many Jews in Palestine. These are all people that came as refugees from the Second World War after the Nazis' extermination. There's a very famous incident where there was a whole full of these refugees, and they came to America, and America refused them. The ship had to turn around, and they ended up finding Palestine, right? It's a book by Leon Uris. I forget the name of the book now exactly. It'll come to anyway. His name is Leon Uris, Uris, who wrote about this. Anyway, you can find it more. But still, when you understand that this is refugees that are coming there, and you've got the similar issue now in the world with like the Syrian refugees and stuff like this, right? It's a complex problem. It's a complex problem. But again, people aren't looking to work it out, and you've got stubbornness, intransigence, abuse, manipulation, illegality. You could argue. So a very complex problem, but at some point you've got to say, hey, we've got to set the past aside and say, what is the reality today? How can we make this work today? And the only way that's going to happen is by insisting on collaboration. If everybody says, fine, we're going to stop arguing with you, we're going to now work together, we're going to find some way to collaborate and engage joint projects. When you start engaging in joint projects, that project that you both jointly involved in has benefit for yourself, right? In other words, my benefit is also because you are involved in this. Now I'm looking to make sure things are good for you, because if things are good for you, they're good for me. See? Different logic, different logic. So yeah, so we have to be very careful about generalizing. We love to generalize in the world and say, we love to say Muslims and Christians and this and that and that. But you know what? When you start to scratch the surface, I know from personal experience of having actually made an effort to examine this. When somebody says it's a Christian, that means absolutely nothing. Why? Because there's such a vast range of what that means. It's so broad and so vague, and within Christian, you get the whole range. Yeah. Like the mafia, very diligent Christians. They go to church every Sunday. Yeah, Northern Ireland, Protestants and the Catholics fighting each other, all Christians. See, it doesn't really mean anything. So we must be careful of these labels. We like to assign them because it's a lazy way of going about things because it makes life easy. But you can't say that, right? And when you look at the Middle East and you say this and this, even Palestinians and Israelis, that doesn't, because not all Palestinians are supporting this, not all Israelis are supporting this. Yeah. So you have to really look at who is the ones that are determining this. And now you have to get back into the sources of power. Yes. And who's behind the sources of power, sources of influence, people who are making money out of it, for instance. Yeah. And paying those that are in power to keep the trouble going, rewarding them in some way. So when we look at it in this view, changes everything. Very big shift. Yeah. We have to be very careful of generalizing. And when we do put those generalized labels, we aggravate the whole problem. It's really not a good thing to do. Really not a good thing to do. That's why this for me is so important. Yes. When we say for me, then we get past those labels. And when we try and hear somebody saying this, I'm a this, I'm a that, are you speaking as a Christian? And what does that mean? Can you speak for all Christians? Can you speak for all Muslims? Can you speak for all Jews, Hindus, Buddhists? No, you cannot, because there's such diversity. Within those broad groups, you get every kind. Like I said, the mafia, they're Christians, but they're criminals. Likewise, in other religions, you got criminal organizations. Yeah. But they're not criminal Muslims. They're not criminal Hindus. Of course they are. Yeah. And they, it's not like they're just doing it for lip service. They're quite serious about their religion. That doesn't mean that they can't be criminals. It's quite fascinating. Just hypocrisy is off the charts sometimes. People believe what they wish to believe, what's convenient for them, which satisfies their egos, which absolves their consciences, etc., etc. Right? So when we look at things in this context, you got to go down to the individual level. That's where it matters. Yeah. Now, and the bubble levels, and people conforming, people going along with things. For the most part, stuff that happens, the people in the street, the average person, they have very little influence on it. Even if they disagree and don't want anything to do with it, it's out of their hands a lot of times. And, when it gets really extreme, then people take to the streets and you have protests and riots and stuff. But that takes quite a lot to get people to do that. I mean, just think of the average person, people that you know. What is it going to take you to go out and protest and riot and cause trouble and try and overthrow your government? It would have to be really extreme to get people to make that effort. 'Cause I got my own life to live. I could be bothered with all that stuff. Right? A lot of people aren't even aware of it. There are people who are not aware of what's going on in the Middle East. I know it's hard to believe, but it's hard. It's a reality. They don't ever watch the news, right? So they don't know what's going on. They don't even know what's going on locally because they never watch the news. They're just not interested. They're just living their own lives. Couldn't be bothered. There's nothing wrong with that either. You don't have to know what's going on elsewhere. Yeah. Very interesting stuff. All right, let's read. Actually, I think I'm going to do this tomorrow. I know I invited everybody, but no, except for you, Joseph. Nobody else came, so it's okay. It's not bad, and we have a lot of stuff to do, Beena and I, anyway. So us ending early is not a problem. Um, you know, maybe we can just add a bit more. Moreness perspective is to look at the moreness involved. And the moreness involved in this is, now, moreness isn't always necessarily positive, right? But, well, in its flavor, where the understanding is the moreness. But when we look at the depth. So when we look at this whole issue and we look at it via moreness perspective, we start to see the motivations, the attitudes, the beliefs, yes, and the habits, especially. Way of impeccability, right? It starts off with clarity of intent. Then immediately after that, it starts a focus on habits. First, you need to be very clear what you're doing. Once you're clear what you're doing, you realize, oh, oh, what's preventing me from getting what I want? Habit. So incredible, right? And look at this case. When you start to see cultural habits, the habits of not caring, the habits of being aggressive, the habits of being hateful, the habits of thinking the other people are the enemy and bad. You know, I saw this one time, for instance. I said, there was a report on people shooting rockets and stuff, or bombs, and they were shooting the rockets or whatever it was. Yeah, it was rockets specifically, actually. And the reporter was saying, you know, they shoot this rocket, and the next thing, you know, a bomb lands on them and gets them killed, because the technology now is such that you see the trail going and they can trace it back, and then that building gets blown up. In other words, this is a suicide mission, essentially, to shift these things. Or not just a suicide mission, but you're destroying your buildings, your community, etc. And the reporter was, but how stupid are these people? They keep doing this. They keep sending these rockets, and they keep getting killed, and they keep getting their buildings destroyed every time, like clockwork. Yeah. And the reporter was, but how stupid are these people? Moreness-Perspective says, how desperate do you need to be that stupid? Oh, holy crikey. See, the whole picture changes now. How desperate are you that you are doing something that in your mind is an attempt, a try, a hope. And you know that you're doomed to fail anyway, but you try anyway. That's desperation. When you're desperate, you do whatever, even if you know that it's likely not to work, you try anyway, as long as there's some little tiny hope. That's what desperate is, right? You cling to any smallest hope, even if it's not very realistic. That's a very sad thought. So now you start to imagine, wow, there's some very desperate people out there. Yes? Yeah. Yeah. And then you go to all sides and you say, how desperate is your psychology? How desperate are you for dominance? How desperate are you for a positive perspective? How desperate are you for security? That you are doing these heinous things. Hello, it's all good, Norma. We're going to end early today, end in a few minutes. So I'm glad we waited. I'm glad you're here, Norma. Never an apology. I'm always thrilled when you come, Norma. Always thrilled when you come. Always thrilled. Joseph was asking a very particular question. He said, what's the Moreness perspective on the Middle Eastern problem? Right? I mean, you said Palestinian and Israeli, but you also mentioned Iran, so it makes it the Middle Eastern problem, the Middle Eastern issue. And so I've been sharing on that. And the point is here, you know, look towards the detailed psychologies, look towards the detailed awarenesses, the belief systems, the desperation, the stuff that's going on, the actual physical day to day. And then we start to get a bigger problem. And also, you know, those who are manipulating the situation, those who are abusing it, those who are abusing and manipulating themselves through their belief in winning and dominance. And the only way to solve a problem is to defeat your enemy. It's a belief. It's a belief. You know, and from a monist perspective, I would say to the entire Middle East, you say, dudes, how did Gandhi solve his problems? Non-violence. Why can't you? Yeah? Why can't you? If you want the whole world on your side, you start doing non-violent protests. Truly non-violent protests. You're going to have the world on your side very quickly. Yeah. Either way, whoever starts that is going to get the world on their side. Yeah. And if both start doing it, well, then the whole world is going to make a real effort to support them. There's many places in the world that say, you know, these guys have been at it for so long, it's pointless. You know, we've tried and they just don't want to know. So, well, leave them to their own nonsense. Yeah. Moreness-Perspective. If you're doing the same thing over and over and it doesn't work for you, try something different. This is the magic of perspective shifting. Yeah, strategy. It's not working. Try something different. It's not working. Try something different. But it's about paradigm shifting. See, they're trying new ways of fighting. They never think in the overall conception. The fighting is the problem. That's what I'm saying, Norma. Yes, exactly. Right. If they need to learn to love themselves, Norma. Doesn't matter. There's a lot of people that love everybody in the Middle East, in the world. It doesn't help them. They don't love themselves. They insecure. They fearful. They caught up in this fighting mindset. Yeah. Anybody who loves themselves is not really very keen to go to war. Think about that for a second. Yeah. It's that I'm a lover, not a fighter. Yeah. Very powerful. Beena, any more thoughts? Any more comments?
No, it's okay because that I just want to rest a bit more.
Yes. All right. We'll end today and we'll end it here. Thank you for coming, Norma. I love that you're here. This is too brilliant. This is too brilliant. All right. So brilliant, 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 brilliant. All right. Now I was going live on TikTok on the phone, and problem is it's so small I can't always see what I'm doing here. Yeah. I'm not sure how to end this, or did it end of its own accord? I don't know. I'll just close the whole program, close the whole TikTok. All right. I'm assuming that will end it. I'm assuming that will end it. All right. Why or why can't they love? Exactly, because they caught up in the habit of hatred. Very simple, Norma. Very simple. Yes. Hating has become a habit over there. And that's very sad. And very, very, very sad. Yeah. Very sad. Okay. I don't know what happened to Instagram. We were live there, and I don't know. It's a problem. All right, all right, all right. All right, I'll just end the live and then see with that. So, Joseph, any more comments before we go? Oh, very odd, very odd. All right, all right. So we'll see you all tomorrow, and then tomorrow we'll start on book 2. Very keen to start on book 2. Very keen, very keen, very keen. Yeah, fun day tomorrow. We've got all sorts of things going on tomorrow. Wednesday's busy day. Busy day. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye, Joseph. Thank you, man. Bye-bye, Norma. Love that you came, Norma. And we'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye.